The Resolution of the Mind, Basic Theory and Levels 1 through 3 based on the works of Dennis Stevens. Narrated by Anonymous. Theory section. Purpose, intention, goal and postulate can be regarded as synonyms. A game is a contest in conviction. Conviction, then, is an enforcement of knowingness. Enforcement of knowingness is called importance. Purposes are made more intense in order to make them more convincing. Thus, importance is the intensity of purpose. As the intensity, or importance, of a purpose approaches zero, then the purpose itself approaches zero. Importance bears the same relation to purpose as cattishness does to a cat. When all the cattishness has been removed, the cat is gone too. To resolve a purpose in the mind, it is only necessary to address the importance of this purpose. Once this has been resolved, the purpose itself will approach zero and finally vanish. This is the basis of all effective psychotherapy. Any purpose, to stay in existence, requires an importance rating. But importance is an enforced knowingness, and once the importance has gone, the purpose too has vanished. Therefore all purposes are systems or methods of knowing, not knowing, making known, or making not known. Purposes are held in suspension in the mind by opposing purposes. Because of this, a purpose can only be resolved in relation to its opposition. It can never be resolved in isolation. A pair of purposes in opposition is called a problem. Problems are the basic building blocks of games. It is necessary to clearly differentiate between the rather loose term opposite and the very precise term opposition. Opposition is the exact opposing postulate, whereas opposite has a much broader use. The opposite of knowing is loosely regarded as not knowing. However, the opposition postulate to know is to be not known. This is not a matter of conjecture, but of logical necessity. Life has 4 basic abilities. Every purpose in life must manifest in line with one or other of these basic abilities. The totality of these manifestations regarding a purpose we call the goals package of that purpose. Thus, all possible manifestations of the goal to know are within the to know goals package. All possible games regarding a purpose are within its goals package. All possible non-games, also known as complementary postulate situations, regarding a purpose are within its goals package. Thus, the totality of charge, or in plainer words, upset, on any goal is to be found within its package. The law of duality. The law of duality states that the assignment of importance to a thing, or class of things, automatically assigns importance to the opposite or absence of those things. Thus, if life is considered important, then death, the absence of life, has also been granted importance. If the concept of self is considered important, then the concept of not self is thereby also granted importance. The evaluation of things, one against the other, is achieved by the noting of differences and similarities between them. Evaluation is easiest when the two things are placed side by side in the same moment of time. A then importance and a now importance are best evaluated when viewed simultaneously in the same moment of time, now. The general action of simultaneously viewing a then and a now scene is called time-breaking. The name derives from the fact that the action of time-breaking breaks the temporal separation of then and now, and thus removes the command power of the past scene, so time-broken. That which has been time-broken no longer has a command power over the being. Time-breaking is the basis of all psychotherapy. When the patient tells his therapist of some past occurrence, he is time-breaking it, for the therapist and the incident are thus brought into the same moment in time, namely now. However, a being can learn to time-break solo, and thus dispense with the need for a separate therapist. The mechanism is in no way dependent upon the presence of another person. As he becomes more and more proficient in the skill, the being soon reaches a stage where the presence of a separate therapist is not only unnecessary, but is actually slowing down the patient's progress. He can time-break much faster than any separate therapist could conceivably follow, and the continual need to keep reporting progress to the therapist becomes increasingly inhibitive of gains. Mankind has always known that telling his troubles to another was helpful, but has attributed it to some quality in the other person, or to the fact that he is talking to him. But this is not so. The benefit was always derived from the mechanics of time-breaking, which is the simultaneous communication with then and now. Now that the facts are known, a separate therapist is only required until such time as the patient is confident that they can do the job alone. From the viewpoint of the therapist, it's a matter of helping another until such time as they are capable of helping themselves, and all assistance should be given with this view in mind. Any other approach, although undoubtedly good for business, is just not in the best interest of the patient. The mind is like an itch. Although early on the being might require a separate therapist to scratch it for him, he must be encouraged to do his own scratching, or he'll be needing a therapist to scratch his itch forever. Dependence upon the therapist must never be permitted to build up, and at all times the patient should be encouraged to stand on his own feet. It's his mind. He created it and he is maintaining it. In the final analysis, only he can resolve it. The intensity of the compulsive games condition between a being and his past is the sole factor that determines whether he can walk out of the trap unaided, or will, in the early stages, require assistance from a separate therapist. There is, in fact, a test which readily determines whether a being can go solo from the word go, or will need assistance early on from a separate therapist. Introduction to TROM Levels 1 through 3. You are about to take a mind apart, namely your own. It might have already started to come apart just from studying what you have so far in TROM. I hope it has. How long does it take? It takes as long as you remain in a compulsive games condition with it. Stop playing games with it, and it will promptly vanish. The very best advice I can give you at the outset is to be very positive when you do the exercises, then be very passive and willing to learn when bits of your past show up. In this way you'll most rapidly discover all there is to know about that most fascinating of beings. You. There is a short list of do's and don'ts to guide you on your way. You ignore them at your peril. Don't attempt the exercises while your body is tired, hungry, suffering from disease or dietary deficiency, or while under the influence of drugs or medication, including alcohol. The exercises are done with the body's eyes open at all times. Do the exercises alone, away from interruptions or distractions. An exercise is continued as long as produces change and is then left. The royal road to making a complete caught case out of yourself with these exercises is to change the exercise every time you change. You might as well cut your throat at the outset, it will be quicker and far less messy. The exercises will produce changes. They are designed to produce changes. The benefits are often preceded by unpleasant sensations. If you press on and do exactly as instructed, you will derive the benefit. If you quit when the going gets a bit rough, you could stick yourself with unpleasant sensations for days. What turned the unpleasant condition on will, if continued, turn it off. Don't panic. If your head falls off, quietly replace it on your shoulders, remembering to put on the right way round, and continue with the exercise. It is still producing change. There are only two pitfalls while doing these exercises. To stop doing the exercise while it is still producing change. To continue the exercise after it has ceased to produce change. Of these, the first is by far the most serious. Any bad effects brought on by overrun immediately vanish when one realizes that one has overrun. Now what do I mean by change? Any change in awareness, sensations, emotions, etc. A yawn, for example, is a change. It is a sign that unconsciousness is lifting. One therefore goes on with the exercise. However, it is entirely safe to leave an exercise that is still producing change at the end of one session, and continue it at the beginning of the next session. There is a supplementary exercise which facilitates this. It is always best to set aside certain periods of your life to do these exercises. Don't attempt them while crossing busy streets as a pedestrian, or while driving a car. The resulting accident could well put an untimely end to your progress. The vast majority of the unpleasant sensations that occur along the way are associated with various moments in time where your attention has been stuck. As you free up from them, you move through and out of them and into present time. There is, however, one other class of phenomena which may occur. This is overstimulation of the body's nervous system. The sensations here are more startling than unpleasant, but you best know about them or you may wonder what is happening to you. Many things can overstimulate the body's nervous system, including drugs, allergies and sudden impacts. We all know the sensation of seeing stars as a result of a sudden impact to the skull, or even to other parts of the body. Electric shock can also produce the same phenomena. The mind itself, by suddenly impinging upon the body, can overstimulate the body's nervous system too. And this is what can sometimes happen during these exercises. The exercise simply impinges some part of the mind against the body, resulting in overstimulation of the nervous system. As a result, you may experience weird phenomena in your body's visual field. It can show as blind spots, patches of flickering light, etc. The phenomena is always of short duration, and after half an hour or so it will fade out. You don't do anything about it. Just understand what has happened. If you wish, go off and rest until the phenomena dies down, then continue with the exercise that turned it on. You must do this, for it is a change. It is not serious, and you are not harming your body, for the body's nervous system is built to withstand enormous overload before it cuts out entirely and unconsciousness occurs. It just isn't possible to overstimulate the nervous system this far with the exercises, and the most you will ever manage is a few blind spots or flashing lights in your visual field. Level 1. If this step needs running, it can only be successfully completed by a separate therapist. As the being goes into a more and more compulsive games condition with his own mind, he becomes more and more fixated upon it, and less in contact with the realities of present time. His actions become more and more strange and irrational until, eventually, for his own safety and the safety of those around him, he has to be institutionalized. Everyone who has a mind is in a compulsive games condition with it, and therefore to some degree out of touch with the realities of the present. It is entirely a matter of the degree to which he is out of touch. There is a make-break point beyond which contact with the present, or present time, is so slight that any attempt to contact the past will dangerously lessen this tenuous contact, and so easily precipitate a psychotic break. The first step is always to get in contact with the present. Only when this is above the make-break point is it safe for the being to contact his past. This is true whether the being is working solo or with a separate therapist. In that the being is never aware that his contact with the present has fallen below this make-break point, we see the reason why level 1 is, inevitably, a separate therapist step. It's never easy for a being to be aware that he's not aware, which is why you will find a higher proportion of people totally convinced of their sanity inside insane asylums than you will find outside of one. Their delusional system has become the reality of present time to them, and as they know they are in contact with this, they then just know they are sane, so to speak. Your truly sane person has no such certainty but merely much positive evidence. Fortunately, only a small percentage of humans are below this make-break point, and most of those have a long history of being in and out of institutions. However, there are a few below this point who may have no such history. They are those who possess a so-called sane delusional system. The state is appropriately known as computational psychosis. The being gives all the apparency of being highly sane, if a little too fixed in his ideas. As long as he's not subject to undue stress, he lives a completely normal life. But he's a walking powder keg, likely to disintegrate at any moment. Too much stress can at any time precipitate a psychotic break in such a person, or what is sometimes politely referred to these days as a nervous breakdown. He's immediately hospitalized. Often he recovers and 5 years later disintegrates all over the place once again. And he'll continue to do so as long as he maintains such a highly charged games condition with his own mind. So only a tiny proportion of humanity require level 1, but if it's necessary it must be run before level 2 is attempted. For the mere attempt to do level 2 can precipitate the psychotic break. It would be terribly easy for me to say, well, we have a fine test for level 1. Let him try level 2. If he spins, he was level 1. It is a test, but hardly a humane one. Fortunately, there is a better test and an entirely humane one. It sorts out those who are below the make-break point without spinning them. The test is in the next section. The level 1 needs to improve his contact with and reality of the present before he can attempt level 2 safely. It's as simple as that. Nothing else is involved. The level 1 is, because of his compulsive games condition with his own mind, too far out of touch with the realities of the present to safely attempt level 2 without running the danger of being utterly overwhelmed by his mind, and suffering a psychotic break. In order to contact his mind, he has to take a little bit of attention off the present. That may be more attention than he can afford, and so he'll spin. I'm mentioning this at great length for obvious reasons. I don't want people spinning on level 2. Particularly when level 1 exercises are available from any competent therapist who is trained to use them. The repair of importances. Also known as the governor. Before we go into level 2, I'd like to introduce you to the governor. This is a simple exercise that will stay with you during the rest of your solo work. The response to this exercise also determines whether or not it's safe for a person to undertake level 2, or will require to complete level 1 first. People who fail the test yet insist upon continuing with level 2 do so entirely at their own risk. I can only warn you of the dangers, not insist that you abide by my warning. If you successfully pass the test, the governor will always get you out of any difficulties the exercises may get you into. However, only a person who doesn't need level 1 running can make the governor work for them, and so has this guarantee. I trust I've made my point. The being, becoming more and more enmeshed in the compulsive playing of games and their accompanying importances, first becomes surrounded with them and then, by contagion, believes that he needs them. Thus, he is in the frame of mind of needing to be surrounded by importances. As that which is considered important tends to persist and become more solid, we find the being in the state of actually believing that he needs to be surrounded by mass and solidity. Note that it's the importance he craves, not the mass and solidity. This soon reaches the point where he feels bad if this mass begins to vanish. Left to himself, he solves any scarcity by pulling in around himself more old mental masses. As these old mental masses also contain various unpleasant sensations like pain and so on, he will pull in upon himself these things in order to be surrounded by the accompanying mass. It's an incredible mechanism, and explains so much of life. For example, the being gets to the stage where he literally cannot afford to solve a problem without first ensuring that his solution will create a larger problem for him than the original problem. His life becomes like one of those old Laurel and Hardy films, where, in endeavoring to solve a simple problem, a larger one is created, and in attempting to solve that, a larger one is created, and so on. The audience used to curl up in laughter at their antics, then promptly go home and do much the same things themselves. I wonder how many wives have regretted asking their husbands to replace a tap washer as they stood viewing the smoking ruins of the family home? The exercises from level 2 onwards tend to dissolve mental mass at an accelerating rate. Thus, the exercise is at variance with his compulsion to be surrounded by mass, importance. This is a very real dilemma, and there is only one final solution to it. The being must replace the old mass, importance, with mass of his own creation. In this way he can do the exercises which vanish the unwanted mental mass without compulsively pulling in around himself further unwanted mental masses to fill the vacuum so produced. In the final instance, this is the only way that he will ever let go of his mind. While he is in the frame of mind of needing importances, he will never permit one to vanish until he is assured that he can easily replace it with another. Early on, the being is like a prisoner who has been incarcerated in a cell for all of his life. He has come to believe that he needs the walls of his prison, and if suddenly freed will demand to be locked up once more. Failing this, he will rush into the nearest room, slam the door after him, and hide. This mechanism is well known by prison authorities who have to deal with long-term prisoners. It is one of the hidden benefits of the parole system. Right now you are like such a long-term prisoner regarding your own mental mass. You've come to believe that you need it, and so will pull in round yourself more mental mass to replace that which the exercises causes to vanish. Thus, we have to repair the importances we vanish with self-generated importances, or the being will soon get himself into a frightful mess. He will find himself in possession of highly persistent aches and pains he knows not what of, as well as a host of other unpleasant emotions and sensations. This mechanism, if not understood and allowed for, will sooner or later bring any psychotherapy to a grinding halt. The researcher was thus led to believe that his therapy was of no use, when, in fact, it was working all too well. RI also has this remarkable property. You cannot overrun it. Being an entirely natural ability of life, it's quite impossible to harm yourself in any way by running RI. It stops producing change after a while, but further running of it does not produce overrun symptoms. However, RI can be badly underrun when it is required. This is a definite pitfall, and one you should avoid. The main use of RI during the exercises is to act as a lubricant. It keeps things going smoothly. It should be used in generous amounts. It must be used at the following times: between the ending of one exercise and the start of a new one. At the end of every session. At the beginning of every session. During the session if the going gets rough, that is to say you suffer an intolerable amount of unpleasant sensation. Bluntly, these exercises will not work in the absence of RI. Level 1 is the only exception to this, but as level 1 is almost entirely perceptual RI, the rule still applies. In the absence of RI, the exercises will very soon grind to a shuddering and rather painful halt. When in doubt, use and run RI. Whenever you run creative RI in session, always run both commands to no further change. Do not leave it while it is still producing change. The second command is just as important as the first. Do not leave either while they are still producing change. The exercise will run down your stock of importances. Use RI to repair it. Thus, although RI is run to no further change, just the doing of the exercise will make it produce changes once more. Early on your tolerance of loss of importance is very slight, so RI will have to be run frequently. Later your tolerance increases enormously, and you have a much wider latitude in these things. However, never will you be entirely free of the necessity to run RI as an adjunct to the exercises until you've got to the very end of level 5. The test. We are now in a position to determine whether or not you can begin at level 2, or will require to complete level 1. The test is very simple. Just work your way through the list of RI commands. Creative ones first. Give each pair a good run before you move on. You are looking for changes. Any changes. If it produces any change, it's a usable RI command. If none of the creative list produce a change, then up on your hind legs and start getting your paws into contact with the walls and floors and tables in your room right now. Okay. You found one? Good. Now run all the change out of it. I don't care how long it takes. Run all the change out of it, run it until it's strictly ho-hum. Good. Feel better? Fine. You've now topped up your reservoir of importances, and are ready for level 2. Alright, I haven't forgotten you others. Don't tell me. Nothing happened. It all seems silly, does it? Tell me, did running perceptive RI make you feel a wee bit queasy in your stomach? Touching all those solid objects? It did? Good. Continue with it until you feel relaxed once more. You are up to doing level 2. Just make with the pause on the furnishings for an hour or two and it will work wonders for you. However, if you don't feel up to it, then go and see a separate therapist who is skilled in level 1 exercises and let him help you do it. And, finally, those to whom absolutely nothing happened at all during the test. You aren't up to tackling your mind solo right now. Don't try it. It could put you in the hospital. You need level 1. Go see a separate therapist and get it run. But don't let him tinker with your mind until level 1 has been properly run, for even with a separate therapist it's not entirely safe for you to do so until level 1 has been completed, even though he has a sympathetic ear, and a nice leather couch for you to rest on. Get level 1 run, and I'll see you later. Level 2. Purpose, to find the past. To exercise the being in evaluating the past to the present. Now I'll be brutally honest with you. If you need this level running badly, it's going to hurt. It all depends upon how severe the compulsive games condition is between you and your mind. If you're rather chummy with your mind, the exercise will be a breeze, and you'll enjoy it as well as deriving benefit from it. However, if you are a mass of so-called repressions and inhibitions, you are in for a hot time of it. You'll probably be absolutely sure that you are going to die before you've got your teeth a couple of inches into this level. There's nothing like level 2 to separate the men from the boys. Crack this one, and the rest is easy. However, the level must be done, for there's no other way to get a being to be able to time break. Use RI liberally. Don't be a martyr, run RI when the going gets rough. You've nothing to gain by suffering any more than you have to. This level is designed to crack the compulsive games condition you are currently in with your own mind. It does it with ruthless efficiency, to the full extent you are currently capable of achieving. But I'll tell you this, once you come out the other end you'll have lost all fear of your own mind. You'll know with absolute certainty that there's nothing it can do to you that you can't handle. You're over the biggest hump. The being who has successfully completed level 2 has said goodbye to separate therapists. He now knows he can do what has to be done alone. If this technology ever becomes lost to mankind, it will only be because some faint hearts could not confront the horrors of level 2, and so we'll change it all into something pleasant and useless. Never miss it. Level 2 is the only barrier that sits between mankind and the attaining of nirvana. He cannot face level 2, and so he goes to a separate therapist to help him through it, never realizing that by so doing he has negated his own responsibility in the matter, and so doomed himself to failure. He must do this step alone, or he'll never be able to cock a snook at his own mind. There is no other choice. So level 2 will be a baptism of fire for many of you. So be it. Press on. I've known the successful completion of this level to cure chronic alcoholism in a being all by itself, so the results are well worth attaining. Remember, you've lived through the original of whatever your mind has to throw up at you, so you can live through the recall of it. The last thing you do before you expire is, run RI. Then you won't expire. Then you continue on with the exercise. Commands. A. Select a non-significant past scene. Masochists can select a significant one. B. Select an object from this scene. C. Find an object in PT, one you can see with your eyes, that is different from the past object. D. How is it different? Repeat C, and D. It's permissible to use the same PT object over and over again if you wish, until no more change, then. E. Find an object in PT, one you can see with your eyes, that is similar to the object in the past scene. F. How is it similar? Repeat E, and F, until no more change, then repeat C, and D. Continue until both C, and D, and E, and F, produce no more change. G. Select a new past object, either from the same past scene or a different one. Repeat C, and D, then E, and F, with this new past object until no more change. Continue the exercise, using more and more significant past objects, until no more change occurs with any object from the past you care to select. Now do the exercise with past persons. Select them one at a time, and complete the exercise with each person. Continue until no more change occurs with any past person you care to select. As you do this exercise, and the compulsive games condition between you and your mind begins to break down, you'll find that it becomes progressively easier to place the then and now objects side by side for comparison purposes, until you are quite easily able to view both the then and now objects simultaneously. You are learning to time break. By the time the exercise has gone null, you'll be an expert time breaker. Don't rush the exercises, nothing is to be gained by so doing. Once started on a past object or person, you should persist with the object or person. To change around all the time will not make it easier for you, you are just prolonging the agony and the exercise. Run the changes out as you go, that is always the fastest way. Remember, you are running out a compulsive games condition between you and your own past. The exercise continues to produce changes as long as this compulsive games condition is highly charged. As the compulsive games condition quietens down, so the exercise ceases to produce change. You end up feeling quite different about your past, quite friendly towards it, as well as being a competent time breaker, and so ready for level 3. Level 3. General time breaking. Time breaking. Definition: the simultaneous viewing of then and now. If level 2 has been properly done, then level 3 will be easy. It's just a romp around your past, learning your skills and applying them. However, if you've skidded off level 2 and hope to find salvation in level 3, I have some bad news for you. Either nothing will happen, or all the things you hope to avoid will come back and haunt you at level 3. Furthermore, you'll be stuck with them from here on out. You've either cooled this compulsive games condition you were in with your past at level 2, or you haven't. Level 3 is no place to be playing this sort of game. Simply because while you are still playing this game you cannot effectively time break, so the exercises will not benefit you. So, if in doubt about whether level 2 is finished, then it's not finished and you must go back and finish it. Then, and only then, will level 3 help you. Once level 2 is complete, the being is able to comfortably place then and now objects side by side for comparison purposes. Indeed, it will be found that the comparison has become largely automatic. Once he so places them, the comparison occurs almost instantly. This is as it should be. A being cannot view through time, this is an illusion. He can only view across a distance. Everything you view right now. The action of simultaneously viewing then and now breaks the illusion of time. It literally breaks time breaking. While the being continues to try and compare the then and now objects while still considering them in different moments in time, he never achieves a full comparison, thus, he never achieves a true evaluation. Commands. A. Select a past scene. Become simultaneously aware of the scene and present time around you. Don't try and time break all of the scene at once. Take it a bit at a time. Continue to do this until the past scent fades, or in other words, begins to fall away in intensity compared to present time. B. Select a new past scene, and repeat A. Continue until you are willing and able to time break all your known past. Editor's note on the running of level 3. In a later lecture, Dennis Stevens elaborated on what he meant by don't try and time break all of the scene at once. Take it a bit at a time. The following is in his words. You should get in there, get some of the emotions in them and time break the emotions out. Get some of the sensations in those incidents and time break the sensations. Time break the postulates. Get in there, get everything in that incident, get the lot. Remember I said in the write-up, take it a bit at a time. Get the important bits out, then get the rest of it out. Now back to the main text. This exercise will take many hours, joyful hours, and you are gaining all the way. The past will first be found to become increasingly intense in perceptics, then to progressively vanish. As the level nears completion, you'll be hard put to find new scenes to time break, and will be searching for them. This is quite normal. Run RI as necessary. The exercise is not particularly destructive of importances, compared to level 2, say, but RI will speed your progress considerably. Every so often you'll come across a scene that just will not time break. Don't worry. Just roll up your sleeves and drop back to level 2 regarding it and start finding some differences and similarities between the scene and present time. Suddenly it will flip out easily. Run a bit of RI at this point. You've found a so-called sticker. There's something in that scene, more to it than meets the casual gaze. You'll be picking that one up again later on level 4 or 5. At this stage we are only interested in time breaking it. Although the past will progressively vanish during this level, nothing is being lost except the enforcement to view it. Any part of your past that has been time broken can easily be brought back into existence once more merely by desiring to view it. You've now got your feet a couple of rungs up the ladder, and know which direction the ladder is taking you. Thank you for listening to this audiobook specially prepared for DIY Salvation on YouTube. I'd like to thank Roger and Mary Tandry for allowing me to make my contribution to the subject of TROM. Please subscribe to their channel as there is more to come.